Thank you so much for having me. It's just really a blessing to be with you in this amazing program.
Thank you. Now, guys, as I'm sure you're used to by now, I'm using multiple devices, so please show me some grace as I will read the bio. But I'm using my computer and phone, so if I'm looking to the left, please don't get distracted. It's just kind of technical difficulties. Cecilia Oebanda Pasis is the founder of the Voice of the Free VF Foundation Incorporated, a non-government organization in the Philippines. It is a globally recognized human rights advocate and freedom fighter. She is also regarded as an international expert on human trafficking, child labor, and domestic work. She was appointed by the Office of the President as the Women's Sector NGO representative at the Philippine Interagency Council Against Trafficking for the past 6 consecutive years. A freedom fighter, even in her youth, Ate Cecilia dedicated her life to ending modern slavery and eventually founding Voice of the Free, VF Foundation Incorporated. Since then, she has successfully established global best practices to fight human trafficking. After 30 years of serving the organization, she retired as executive director of Voice of the Free and is now serving as a board. She is also an advisory board of Freedom United and Telos Governance Agency's Advisory Council. Ate Cecilia was featured in a 2 hour CNN Freedom Project documentary entitled The Fighters, which became instrumental in busting a child pornography ring. She was also featured in BBC, Thomson Reuters, PBS Hours, and many more. And she has received multiple awards, including the Anti-Slavery Award 2005 from Anti-Slavery International. At the Cecilia, is there anything I have missed off or anything additional you'd like the listener viewers to know about yourself?
It's really too much. And well, I would like just to introduce as Ati says, big sister for everybody. It's really trying to do our work here.
Thank you so much. I want to start by asking you just to share with us about your culture. You're from the Philippines, which for me is an amazing country. I am so in love with the Philippines. Both Philippines and India are my favorite countries in the world. And there are so many people who have not had the privilege and opportunity to travel there, especially with the current circumstances. Can you tell us about the Philippines, about its culture and the country?
Okay. Well, in the Philippines, we are located in Southeast Asia. We are an archipelago. We are composed of 700,000 islands. Even and of course, that's only low tide. But when there's high tide, well, of course, we decrease as an island because some of the islands is really very small. People is
Can you tell us how things have changed? Oh,
yeah. Now, well, in the Philippines, we are a very familistic centered people. We love to dance, we love to sing, but of course, because of the pandemic, because of the situation now, so it's very difficult to navigate and to move, and the impact of the pandemic is really it's really unbearable at this point. As you understand already, before the pandemic, the Philippines, the anti-slavery, the global slavery index already identify around 780,000 Filipinos live in slavery-like situation. Philippines is identified by UNICEF as the epicenter of pornography and cyber sex. And during the pandemic, there are around 4 million Filipinos lost their job, and there are around 550,000 migrant workers who lost their jobs. So because of that, of course, the poverty is really accelerated. A lot of trafficking problems also magnify at this point because of the added problem of health and poverty.
how have things changed in the Philippines over the last decade, and what are the differences you see now compared to when you were growing up?
Well, in the Philippines, when I'm growing up, I grew up in a very difficult situation in the Philippines because it's under martial law. It is under Marcos regime, and actually, I serve in a church as a catechist, and because of that, the church were also persecuted during Marcos regime, during the dictator, and I was in prison together with my family for 4 years. And of course, after after return to democracy, and we are happy for more than 30 years that we are enjoying the democracy. But as of now, as the situation worsened because of political um, situation in the Philippines and including the COVID, it's really a huge problem. And since people are quite desperate when it comes to their poverty and the cultural and economic mitigations of human trafficking, a lot of cases of trafficking actually arise at this point. So definitely after 30 years um, of fighting, the landscape quite different compared to the previous year when I'm growing up. So as of now, I feel that with the COVID-19, we are in the portal. We don't know really the new world, the new normal that we're going through, and we're going to face after this. But definitely, at this point, we already observe increase of cases of trafficking.
How did you first become educated on the topic of sex trafficking? We know that human trafficking isn't new, and of course, as you said, it's accelerated, particularly at this time with lockdown and cyber sex trafficking, which we'll come to later. But how did you first actually get to know about it? How did you first learn of the topic, of the issue of trafficking, and how did you first become involved?
Well, at first, actually, my focus before is really on the issue of forced labor or child labor. Forced labor in terms of domestic worker, because as you understand, many of Filipinos were actually sent abroad to work as a domestic worker, right? And then, but there are cases of domestic workers also raped. They maybe started as a domestic worker, but they end up raped and they end up as forced into prostitution. So because of their desperation and desperations, and also they don't have freedom, so they have to endure prostitutions as sex trafficking. And later, the landscape of sex trafficking transformed into something like cyber sex. So I was actually introduced to the issue of cyber sex, online exploitations of children, I think around 12 years ago, when we rescued young girls, young as 8 years old, young as 9 years old, and the other one is 11 years old, who are forced to perform online. Mm. So that's the first time that I was exposed to the case of cyber sex, and I can understand how these children were actually lured by people that we trust, and how unacceptable the issue. It's really sad because they actually um, hit hard. They are physically abused if they are not going to follow the instruction of their trafficker. And they thought that they are only actually performing for one person because there's only one person that they actually see in the computer, and not even realize there are hundreds of men actually watching them while they are performing. So that's a heartbreaking. Since then, when we focus on this issue, we're able to identify more girls who are actually in the same situation. And the sad thing is that most of them, a relative that they're trusted is involved in putting them in that situation. And when we talk about those relatives, why you do that to the girls, especially if we file case, file cases through children's relatives or even parents. They just said that they don't even know, they don't even realize that that what they are doing is exploitation, because they said that there's no contact. How can it become exploited? They're just actually talking to people in the internet. They're just performing in online, and there's no physical damage, and it's take time for them to realize that it's abusive. It's not true. Because there's a physical actually abuse going on while they are forcing the girls to perform.
And it's very true because a lot of people don't realize that abuse that is taking place over the internet, specifically cyber sex trafficking, is still abuse. And as we know, for those of us who are in this fight against trafficking, that it is very difficult to prosecute such cases because of jurisdiction issues. And we know, for example, in the Philippines, we have girls and boys who are being sexually abused by family members, peers, or even friends, and that is often life dictated and directed by an individual, for example, in the West, who is enabled to watch live child pornography that he is a director of. And this is a huge issue and something that I know is being dealt with by a lot of great organizations like International Justice Mission, Reverend Sherry Cullen, who also is doing great work in Olongapo. But the fact is, as we know in the Bible, it says, people perish for lack of knowledge. Knowledge is power. And one of the challenges that we're all facing as being on lockdown is that we're all becoming very comfortable with webcam, and children are a lot more vulnerable to being exploited through the internet because they're becoming so comfortable with being sat in front of a computer screen. I know that you founded Voice of the Free. Where did the name come from, and where did this idea originate from? Because for me, I actually dream about building safe houses throughout the Philippines, and Emirate is a huge issue. We have street children, we have a lot of vulnerable girls and boys, and my dream is actually to build my own voice of the free in its own way. What advice would you have for someone who would like to follow in your footsteps? And in addition, where did your idea come from? Why is that name?
Well, because I think first and foremost because I lost my freedom when I was in prison, and not only me but including my whole family, because I was in prison together with my children and my husband. So you know how to feel that your freedom is stripped. And I think Voice of the Free is, I think it's really the right name, because a lot of these girls don't have a voice, and you can observe, when I met you, when I told you that some of these girls don't even talk for months when we rescue them. It takes them time really to express themselves. It's really time need really to find their voice again in order to tell their stories, and even they need to find their voice so that they can even go back to and tell us what's really happened to them. So I think so for me, voice of the free is really the expression and the manifestations that at the end of the day, whatever we're doing is just really to give voice and hope to these girls, and how as the Bible said, that these are children of God, and these are the children that need to be here. So for me, that's my inspiration coming from, and with living with the girls who become really uh, courageous, to become brave, to tell their story, to go to the court, to face their perpetrator, and through their voices, through their testimony, they were able to put in jail these evil people, and for me, that's freedom for them. So that's the voice of the free. And for you who wants to, to uh, to plan also to create similar shelter for us. Anything, small step, anything that can help these girls is really welcome. And you can always dream big, but big or small, can really change the life of the girls. And yeah, for us, for me, it takes me many years before we create shelter, because shelters is also regulated by the government. So in our case, for example, we are actually licensed with the government. We are licensed by the Department of Social Welfare. And you have to follow all the criterias on, in dealing with trauma, because there's a clinical and there's a spiritual growth that you need to focus, and you need also to make sure that while they are under your care, they need to be empowered, find their resilience, and go back then to school and any opportunity that can make their life different.
What are some of the highs and lows of having an organization? Because I remember when we first met some years ago that, of course, the safe house is in a secure location and the information of where the girls are staying has to be kept confidential. But we know that sometimes the girls do tell the perpetrator or the pimp. What are some of the challenges, but what are some of the benefits of having an organization?
Well, for me, the services that we provide is really, we just, I don't know, but I feel that we're just instrumental of God purpose to these children. And I always believe that, and feel confidence that if this is God's work, He will take care of it. You know, and never in our life that we don't have any any food that we feed to the girls. There's always help coming, and 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 of course, since this is a very sensitive issue, and the case, a lot of our girls' cases were actually celebrated cases, and we are a specialized organization, and security is part of that. And we need always to make sure that that our safe house is safe, because as you know, we have experienced already that we are actually attacked by groups of traffickers. Their time that they destroy our gate, try to get the girls, some of the girls that were rescued. So therefore, as of now, we're really coordinated with the local government and law enforcers, that if we observe anything around our shelter, they need to respond with 2 minutes. They're already there, because as an NGO, your limitation is challenged. Facing these criminal groups, is really one of the huge challenges. As an NGO, we don't have any law enforcing or police power, so we cannot apprehend. It's quite different. So you need always law enforcer in your side to support you and to respond to you. So that's one of the challenges that, and of course, one of the challenges also is you need to find people who really um, so people that have a similar commitment, because this is not an easy fight. So you have traffickers who are always trying to destroy your confidence, try to destroy your organization, try to discourage you. So you need really people who are committed to the issue, and it's not easy to find one. And I'm so lucky that my group, a lot of my people in my groups have been journeying with us for 20 years, for 15 years, and this is not a job for them, but for us this is a ministry. This is a journey together. So that one is really important. And you need to share the same vision. You need to share the same commitment. So yeah, other challenges, of course, is that um, the landscape of trafficking is also changing. The traffickers is also innovate. They have money, they have network, and you need to prepare really for a long haul of fight.
What impact has Voice of the Free had so far? And can you share with us one of your greatest success stories?
Okay, well, as we were able to reach out to close to I think 20, more than 20,000 girls, and then we were able to protect around hundred thousands, maybe. I don't know. But what I'm really proud of is a lot of our girls are already able to finish their school. A lot of them were able to, to start family. They are they are resilient. But what really, if you talk to me, what always inspire me when it comes to the cases of the girls is we have a girl who is trafficked for cyber sex when she was only 12 years old, and um, she's coming from a tribal group, and as of now she's really very brave in helping us tracking even the even the perpetrator abroad. We were able to put in jail his trafficker, Filipino trafficker, the one who actually recruited her. But because of her courage and because of her faith that she can seek justice even for those people who live outside the country, especially the customers and perpetrator. So she is really instrumental to give the testimonies and sharing all the information, and we were able to track some of the perpetrator from Europe, from the US, and we were able to file a case. So courage is possible to if you give the right intervention and the right direction, and on the top of that, acceptance and love to the girls, and they can also help really tearing down organized syndicate because of their testimonies.
Can you share with us a story of one of your survivors that particularly affected you? And of course, not giving any specific details, but a story that you heard of a victim survivor that truly affected you.
But the one who's affected me really is that when we have a 1 year old, when we do a rescue, when we have a girls on the shelters who's young as 1 year old, who's trafficked for cyber sex. She belongs to a group of young girls, and they belong to a one trafficker who live in somewhere here in Manila. So in their group, there are 1 year old, there are 5 years old, 7 year old boy, 14 year old, 15 year old, and even I'm quite long in in this kind of work, but that's really struck me to the core. I don't even expect that we'll have that kind of very young, very young girls who is, and I cannot mention what they really endured because it's really terrible. And seeing them go back to school, smile again, um, but some of them are actually in college now, and with through their testimony, we were able also to file a case and convict their traffickers. So that's a little battle that we win, and and for me that's a huge and very inspiring impact to our work and to me.
I know that one of the most prolific cases is of Peter Scully, which I'm sure you've heard very much about. And for those who don't know the case, Peter Scully was an Australian husband with children who left there after stealing lots of money from business investments, comes to the Philippines and sets up the No Limits Fund Company. He and his girlfriends, plural, Lizel and another girlfriend would sexually abuse girls and boys. And Peter Scully created a video called Daisy's Destruction. In fact, according to what the media revealed to us, that the current President Duterte wanted to bring back the death penalty because of the heinous crime and the nature of what Scully had done to dozens and dozens of children, means that justice was truly served. And on the back of that, what advice do you have for people who maybe stumbled upon the video of Daisy's destruction? Because quite recently, somebody in the Caribbean shared that she personally has watched Daisy's destruction, and she encouraged other people to watch it also. Now, as I know and as you know, that is child pornography, that is a crime. But what advice do you have if somebody stumbles upon this video or a video of its kind? And do you feel that justice was served in relation to Scully in this case?
Well, first and foremost, I think the president have many reasons why he wants to put back the death penalty, and maybe Scully is just one part of it. So, but you're right, Scully cases is really, it's really one of the most hideous, documentations or cases that actually shared in the platform. I would say that if people actually able to see it and encourage it, you need to be afraid, or you need to be warned, because as of now you can be tracked easily. All there are a lot of technology based intervention now that actually tracking people who are downloading or even accessing to this kind of documentary, and encouraging other people is actually one way of supporting it. And I can tell you that globally there are increasing movement and intervention that are tracking people who are downloading and helping proliferate this kind of document. We will catch you. For others who can access that video or even receive that video, please report immediately to your authorities. Cybercrime is a very sensitive crime nowadays, and there are a lot of rules and laws that can be covered in the litigations and prosecutions of this case. So yes, yeah, if you receive this, if you have access to this, just please report it to authority. Interpol, I think they have a special department on this. I know that the US state has also, globally, there's a lot of cybercrime monitoring that's happening to the world. So, and on the top of that, please don't patronize this kind of videos, because the victims that you've been watching are the real victims. There are real people. These are flesh and blood. These are little kids who are real, and the people who created this, like Scully, are are criminals. They are they are criminals that need to put in jail. And when it comes to justice, I think he's now in prison, and I would say that for me it's not enough. It's not enough yet, because we need also to track down those people who buy Scully documentaries, who are the market. Because once there is a market, there's a supply, and that market should also be accountable. Because if there's no market, there's no demand. There's no demand for this kind of video. So we need also to focus on the demand side. Okay.
How well do you sleep at night when you consider some of the cases, and particularly because you have so much hands-on experience working with victims and survivors? How well do you sleep at night, considering that you're hearing these things, you're being involved in the court case? Does it not give you insomnia? Do you not have maybe episodes of crying uncontrollably? How do you manage?
Well, I would be lying if I say that I'm not affected at all. There are times that I'm also very I'm also traumatized with all the what I observe, what I read, what I hear, what I see. But for me, that's part of my life already. So we have what we call also a care for caregivers. It's not only me, but also the social workers, psychologists who are actually handling cases. So we have also to undergo this kind of therapy so that we can able to express and to deal with our own the impact of our trauma. But overnight, I'd say that how hard it is. God is still in control, and and surrendering everything to His will and praying every day, and you know and just holding on the His promise that this crime and this evil will not last as long there are people like us who's willing to sacrifice and willing to do what is right, what is righteous for these kids. And yeah, and overnight, I think every day I just surrender to Him and and pray that He give me peace and restoration every day to continue what we are doing, to continue the fight. So I think every day God just refresh us and prepare us for the next day.
What are some of the forces that allows trafficking to continue? Because at the end of the day, we know this is a vicious cycle. It continues because of supply and demand. And even if we think back in the Bible, one of the first human trafficking cases was Joseph in the Bible. So human trafficking and exploitation is not new. But what is causing it to continue to persist?
Well, because definitely there are evil in this world, right? So there's always the battle of good and evil. So and of course the enemy will continue to find ways to harvest souls, and there are greedy people. His army is on the loose, you know. So I can just put generally simply like that. But of course, there are other factors that push for that. It's poverty, ignorance, greed. It's you know a lot of this a lot of the reason for this to exist is already mentioned in the Bible, right? From this very beginning of our time, sin is already there. Greed, jealousy, love of money, the worldly, the worldly life that people were actually enjoying, you love. So it's always a battle of evil and good, or God and enemy. So, well, yeah. So I think I can put that simply. I can answer you technically, but I don't like because at the end of the day, it's just really simple as that.
Absolutely, and I completely concur. And that's the reality we need to accept, that we live in a world of sin, and there is good and there is evil, and there are people who take advantage of others for various reasons, and it's never okay. But I know that we serve a good and just God. I want to ask, with regards to human trafficking in the Philippines, apart from yourself and some of the other organizations across the board, what is actually really being done to bring a crackdown and bring an end to trafficking? So what is really being done, aside from your organization? What type of work is being done, generally speaking, across the country to bring an end to exploitation?
Well, I think think on the last few decades, there's a lot of progress actually because I've been doing this for almost 3 decades. I'd say that there's already a lot of progress. Like we have already existing laws, we have government is already they identify human trafficking as one of the priority. A lot of programs and policies are in place and institutionalized. There are more fighters now than before. When we started this issue, it's only few of us, but as of now, it becomes like a flavor of the month where everybody would like to do it, and that's I think it's good. It's not only few people doing it. What else? I think a lot of this was also discussed in schools. Like for us, we have a movement of young people for the I Fight movements that we are actually educating the young people. We need really to give them information and also inform them how to protect themselves. We need to discuss to them what are the red flags, what are the indicators that they might be end up in human trafficking. So because we need to re-educate, to create a counterculture against this problem, we need the young people to realize that they are the most vulnerable, and we need them to defend themselves. And I'm hoping that maybe the next generation is quite different from our generation as of now. So there are a lot of interventions all over the place that actually I think create an environment of on putting the spotlight of the crime of human trafficking. But because of the pandemic, I don't know how we're going to, I hope that all that effort will not eroded because of the COVID and how people actually, and how the issue of human trafficking uh, put at the aside because of what's going on now to humanity. And yeah, so I always very hopeful for what's going on because I can tell that yeah, there's a lot of players now and a lot of innovations are actually already in place.
And I think that's really amazing, and I think that it's very important because having lived the Philippines for a number of years, I'd say I've been traveling there for around the last 6 years. I usually go annually, and I see situations that concern me. In fact, I've spent a lot of time in Untitled Chapter in Walking Street, and that is where we have girls, boys, ladyboys, or transgenders being exploited. Even in parts of Manila, there's been that there are foreign Western men, maybe, and for me, when I see that, it breaks my heart because as the born again Christian, I know that Jesus would do the same. In the Bible, he hung out with the tax collectors, with the adulterous woman. And so I would like you to share with us what are your observations of human trafficking in the Philippines, because when I'm there, what I often see is a very, very, very old Western man with a very, very, very young woman or girl, and I was informed that this is where at any place outside of the Philippines, or even a local Filipino, can actually purchase a lady or a girl or transgender from a brothel, and he will spend a week or 2 weeks with this young girl as his girlfriend. And many of the time I've been in the mall, I've seen women who appear to me to maybe be a GFE because of their demeanor, their body language, etc. What does it actually look like? If a person came to the Philippines, can you tell us what human trafficking would look like? What exploitation would actually look like? Because as they say, especially in subways in New York, if you see something, say it's an exploitative or trafficking situation.
I'm actually losing you, so I don't get all your questions. But what I understand, if you want me to discuss more about what the trafficking situations. Well, you're right. Like in other places, there are informal prostitutions who are actually maybe what we call street prostitutions, and there are other girls or men or uh, lady boy or human. They are all human beings. Okay, that actually exploited or selling their body on the street. There are also formal organized traffickings which actually managed by syndicate or pimps, and as of now, while they know that there are at this point there are a lot of people or even law enforcers are actually watching, especially if they are very visible in the street or in the club. And there are a lot of raids also going on different clubs. So they are more careful as of now. That's why a lot of transaction is become really invisible. Some of them will actually do the transaction via third party or maybe online, or they try to hide their trucks, and it's sometimes very difficult to to track. Like in the case that we have is that before the foreigner, the white men own some, mostly some of them own, who come here to the Philippines in order to abuse our girls or our people, they already contact the pimps, and from there the order girls in internet or through internet, and they can they can state how long they're going to stay and how long they're going to to be with that person. So the transaction is become more hidden, more organized, um, and that makes our life more difficult. There are still areas, that are the uh, typical prostitution happen. But I think it is really just limited to other areas now. But a lot of things now happening more organized and more underground.
What is the age of sexual consent in the Philippines, and is anything being done to change that? Because I know that there often is this lure for often foreign men to go out to places like Thailand and the Philippines to engage in sexual activity with minors. And I know that a lot is being done for people to actually see a change to the age of consent. But can you share with us what it currently is and what is proactively being done to change that number?
Well, I think it's 18, but there is move that it will be lowered down to 15 or 12. I don't really know about the progress of that. Um, but I think there is move to penalize, to lower the age of accountability to 12. Mm. So that's what we are up here.
How does human trafficking differ between the various provinces? I spoke to somebody recently who shared with me that her mother works in one of the islands, I think it's Mindanao, and how there's often this situation of women being mail order brides, and how this indeed can be an exploitative or trafficking situation. Can you explain what mail order bride is for those who don't know? And can you tell us how trafficking is different in Manila, in Angeles, or in Boracay to the other provinces?
Well, I think it's quite difficult to say that in one region there's only one specific case is happening, because it's all over the place, right? So it may be in Mindanao or maybe in Visayas, all the nature, all the the kinds of traffickings are actually happening. But what you can observe in Mindanao, like for example, is that there's a lot of ethnic groups who are still existing. So you have different tribal groups who practice child marriage. There are also like so that allows in their culture that a child can be married, and I think they need also to be to need to be revisit. In fact, there's a lot of advocacy now looking on the practices and the laws. Mail order bride it's been a practice for thousands of years. I think even long time ago in my mother's time, maybe it's the pen pal, right? So they write and they become really they have a relationship, and it is there's no problem with that if a foreigner and the local Filipina will form a relationship between each other, and explore a relationship so that they can have a they can be maybe married or become you know lovers or whatsoever. The different of mail order bride, it's because there is money involved. Okay, so there is an exploitation. There is people who benefit on it. It is a business transaction. There is an exploitation involved. It's not married for love. It is married for money, and yeah, and there's some usually syndicate who are running this.
Do you believe in the term child prostitution? And do you believe that prostitution is a job and the oldest profession in the world?
Junita, sorry, I can't understand you. I lost you.
Oh, okay. Are you hearing me now?
Not really clear.
Okay, my question is, do you believe in child prostitution? And do you believe that prostitution is a job?
That's a very big debate. But definitely, I don't believe in and don't believe and don't accept a child prostitutions. There are other countries that prostitution is legal, but in the Philippines, prostitution is illegal. So therefore, it is not at this point. You know, it's not acceptable here in the Philippines.
What sort of support is available for victims of exploitation and trafficking? I know, for example, in places like the US, in New York, a number of years ago, there was this mindset that these girls are child prostitutes and that this is these girls trying to make a living, that they are empowering their bodies, etc. For me personally, I don't see it as a profession, as a job, or as work. And of course, it's about hopefully victims and survivors of trafficking or exploitation. What support is available for them in the Philippines at this current moment in time?
I think for us, we don't really look if it is consent or no consent. If they need help, you help, right? If they see it as a job, it's their choice, especially for the adult. For us, for us, we have our own principle. We have our own, we have our own stance on the issues, but doesn't necessarily the same or similar view to anybody. But for us, when we look any individual as a person rather than cluster them in something. So if there is someone who need our help, we help. We cannot say no to those who are they for us because they are children of God, right? So yeah, we might have, we might not even maybe accommodate everybody, especially men, but we always make sure that we lead them into something that can help them. So bottom line for us, yeah, if you need help, we try to help. So whatever your standing or what your principles in life, it's not really matters to us.
And of course, that's what's important because they are people who have been exploited. They're individuals who've been taken advantage of, and the trauma that they have, without the help, the healing, the prayer, that can affect them continually on into their life, the
Yeah.
choices and the decisions that they make. With regards to human trafficking in the Philippines, I'd be interested for you to share with us what do you believe would be an effective punishment for perpetrators of these offences? We heard about the case of Scully, and I actually spoke with a lawyer who worked on the case, and he told me that Scully was getting special privileges, air conditioning, that he had a cell phone he was texting Liza with. And in fact, I read on the internet that Scully still receives an income on Daisy's destruction. And that Daisy's destruction, according to the media, it's 10,000 US dollars per view. I don't know if that is correct or accurate, but the point is Scully gets special privileges. What do you believe is an effective punishment for individuals like Scully, individuals who commit these offences against innocent lives?
Well, actually, the law of the Philippines against trafficking is already very, very harsh. So it's a life imprisonment, and it's that's the highest life imprisonment, and of course you need to be stripped of all the what you just mentioned, who is or special treatment. I don't know really the details of what's going on with Scully as of now. But if that person of really an evidence to show that he is enjoying, the special treatment and everything, we need really to um, to to find the case against those people who are actually become cohorts of Scully. It's not acceptable. It's not it should not be happen to this kind of person, and he is supposed to suffer the crime that he is created, and not to enjoy it. But I think if there is really evidence that benefits and favorable treatment, we need really to strengthen that evidence, and can actually file complaints and file cases to people involved and give the special attentions.
Do you believe that naming and shaming is an effective deterrent for those who are intending to commit these crimes?
Well, in some cases, yes. Some cases, yes, because actually those people who are, especially in the internet, because some people who are trying to hide, their identity through in internet should really expose. A lot of pedophiles abuse our children or girls in their room through their internet. Some of them were virtually raped in the internet, and then after that, we just turn off their computer, get out of the room, go back to their normal life as if nothing's happened. So these people should be exposed, and these people should be known to public, especially if they are convicted. So I think the shaming thing is really if justice is already served. We need to inform the the people that this person is dangerous and this person is a child abuser, or molester, or whatsoever. So I think in that context, but the end of the day, we need really to follow the rules, because as an individual, as an NGO, you can also um, prosecuted, if you just uh, base all your actions into based in your emotions, and I've been there before. I'm always I always motivated by anger and my anger and my disgust. I always sometimes I make decisions which put the organizations also in not really in a right path because of my emotional outbursts. So I learned a hard way that we need also to be patient, and we need also really to follow the rules of law in this case.
And you've made a very, very valid point there, because in fact, there's so many of us, when we hear these stories, we become outraged, we become angry, and the Bible says, be angry but do not sin. And there's something called righteous anger, and a lot needs to be done. And if naming and shaming is going to be an effective deterrent, then it makes sense that it should be implemented. For me, my only concern is that that person will be ostracized outside of the community. I believe in rehabilitation, but unfortunately not everybody's going to change, and that's one of the issues. Do you believe in the death penalty personally? Do you think that that is a solution?
No, no. No, that's why I'm saying to you that we need really to convict or prove that if this person is guilty, because there are laws in the country that people need to inform. Like for example, here in the Philippines, if you are convicted child molester, you're already on the radar, so the people's already informed about it. So I think that's why we need really to be careful. It's not only because we hate these persons or whatever. I believe also that there's always chance for everybody to change their life, or to, of course, to be forgiven. But at the same time, you need also to suffer the consequences of your sin. So we need to be always on the right track on this, because yeah, it's a very delicate. Sometimes our passion is just really to protect the victims and to seek justice. But sometimes you have also to listen to even to the victims, because maybe they have a different definition of justice. Right? It's not sometimes justice for them is not for them able to forgive the perpetrator. It's not for us, or it's not for me to just to dictate what is the concept, or what is justice for everybody, because while we are the rule of law, maybe every individual has a different concept of justice. So I think it's really important always to listen to the victims and put their interests and their voice in the middle of everything. Because we have girls who, able to forgive their parents, right? But they forgive, but they never forget.
And actually, you've made another really, really important point there, because sometimes those of us who don't understand this work, we will dictate to the victim about that we're behaving similarly to the exploiter, because we're taking control away from that victim survivor. And it's about empowering them and enabling them to be able to make the best and the right decisions. Before we wrap up, can you share with us what your future plans and goals are?
Well, as of now, as already mentioned, I retired a few years ago. I promised my children when I reach my age 60, which actually I served already around 30 years to the organization. So I'm 62 now. So before I reached my 60, I decided already to retire. But it doesn't mean that I stop fighting. But it's just that I have a lot of, I feel that for the organizations, we are really very serious on our transition plan. And I have colleagues already that they have been there for a long time and they are equally um, competent and committed. So I think uh, like me, and I feel that it's really a good leader is really a leader who know his time to be, to step down or to just in the sidetrack, but at the same time, of course, journey with the new generations of the organizations. And for me, my plan is just, well, to continue maybe in a different roles. Yeah, maybe my wisdom and my experience can still help the movement, which actually I don't. It makes me surprised because actually I'm more busy now with all the conferences and all the talks and all the consultations. But my 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 personal plan is to offer my remaining years to serve God and to, and to and to glorify Him more through my life and through the life of the girls that I encounter. And I want to be I want to be less in order God to be more. And my goal now is to be no one and just enjoying my remaining life with my five grand beautiful children.
Thank you. And I'm amazed again by all that you've done and all that you continue to do, and especially by your faith in God. And we know that God is in control. And I'm so glad you have made reference to Him throughout this discussion, because there are people who are becoming so consumed with what is going on around them that they have lost all sight of Him, God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. I do want to ask, I think this is important before we wrap up for today's session. If there is a victim or survivor of exploitation or human trafficking listening today, what advice do you have to give them just before we bring this to a close?
Okay, well, but before answering that, I just want to say that I've been there. I thought that I'm the one who is actually more powerful and doing all these things, and I'm motivated with my anger and my passion and everything. But at the end, there's a point in my life that I realized that I'm really nothing, and all of this are actually because of God calling me to do His purpose. But for all the victim who is listening here, it's this is a fight between good and evil, and and uh, please know that help is everywhere. So you don't have to stay in that dark part. Seek and find help. Get out of that situation. It's not what God wants you to be in at this point. No. So please don't think that you are alone. There are a lot of people out there who are actually able to help you. And always seek God face and power and help, because He never despise you, never leave you alone. And just hold on in that faith, and yes, and continue to fight for your freedom.
Wait. Juanita? Hello? Oh, wait.
I'm okay.
Cecil, Miss Cecilia, can I ask you a
I
question?
know that there was another question that was meant to be asked, so if you would like to ask your question, if someone with a question in the room.
Um, you mentioned that you and your
Okay,
family.
what question?
Yeah, you mentioned that you and your
I'm
family.
losing you.
Okay, hold on a second.
I'm not sure if we've lost them.
No.
Yeah, I'm not sure if
Okay.
we've lost them. I got a message that there was a
Okay.
question, but I'm not.
Hello. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. The question was, you mentioned earlier in the beginning of the interview that you and your family was in prison. What was the reason for being in prison?
Okay. Yeah, because I'm fighting the dictator before. I was a rebel against Marcos regime.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, so yeah, I so that's why the thing there, I was pregnant when I was apprehended together with my husband, and all of the family was put in prison during that time.
Okay. Okay. So, I mean, coming out of the prison system, what inspired you to actually lead the fight against human trafficking?
Well, because as I said, when you are stripped of freedom and you know what life in prison, and there's a child who are asking for your help because he was in prison and he was actually hidden by the traffickers, so you know really how you feel about it. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I feel that I'm better because even in a prison I'm with my family, but sometimes the girls that we rescued, she has nothing. She's alone. She's in the dark, and I don't know. Maybe I just feel that I cannot afford to let this girl live the life that I live in prison anymore.
Right, right.
That's
Also, you make mention of a 1 year old being trafficked. What have become
yeah.
of that? What have become of that 1 year old? Have you have any new information? And
Yes, yeah, yeah. She stayed with us, I think, until she was 4 years old, you know.
mm,
And when she was there, because maybe because she's still very, very young, although the trauma is still there, but sometimes she's just crying in the middle of the night when you touch her, she's screaming and everything. But somehow, after a few months, of being showering her with love and acceptance, she learned how to dance and he learned how to and she was able to go to school, and we were able to track a distant relative of her that we really prepared to take care of her. So she was actually reintegrated to her grandmother, that he is taking care of her now. And as of now, time to time we still see each other through Zoom. They send us picture. We are still communicating, and we are really so happy that how she turned out,
wow. When I heard that,
very well.
that sent chills down
So
my spine.
that's why the child is really.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead. You were
No, I
saying
can't.
something.
Can I have a question again because I lost you?
No, no. I was just saying thank you because this
Ah,
when I heard that the 1 year old, I mean a 1 year old child being
yes.
trafficked for sexual gratification, whatever it is,
1 year old man?
that is crazy. I mean, I'm so much when I see people like you and Miss Headley taking up the charge to really fight against those things. I wish more people could become more aware and more involved in the fight and the awareness against human trafficking and sex trafficking. And for those of you listening for the very first time, you could join us again today at 12 o'clock with Miss Headley with another segment of changing cases. Um, it's really mind-boggling to see and to hear actually about those cases where young children as well as 1 year old, have been sold into sex in the sex trade. And I hope that the government in the Philippines, and I kind of have a um, eyes opener and watching at your president, the president, and the kind of steps he taking to eradicate criminal elements in the society. So I hope his fight also is a fight against that trafficking and so on. Because based on his record, he seems like he's a no nonsense person when it comes to drugs and so on. So I don't know what his position is really on on sex trafficking and so on in the Philippines. So again, Juanita, thank you very much. Miss Cecilia. Juanita?
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you. Hear you. Yeah.
Okay, great. Before we go, Artist Cecile, is there any last words you have? What about contact information for those who would like to know more about your organization or maybe want to support financially or with gifts in kind?
Mm. Well, thank you very much for having me. The fight against trafficking continues in the middle of this COVID-19 pandemic and what the world is facing. I just want to reiterate that the help for human trafficking victim is more needed as ever now because there are really increasing cases reported to us. And if you want to help in our fight and in our advocacy and want to help the girls to bring the girls to the girls' educations, to continue the programs that we're doing in terms of healing and their recovery, um, for their trauma-informed program, please contact us in our website or on Facebook or Voice of the Free BF Foundations Philippines. So, and we'll get back to you again. Please visit our website and our Facebook, Voice of the Free BF Foundation Philippines. Thank you very much for having me. God
Thank you
bless.
so much. God bless you too. I really trust and pray that those who have tuned in have been able to really learn, they've been educated, empowered, and inspired. It has really been an honor to have Ati Cecile on the program. For me, I consider her to be famous. She's doing amazing work. She's renowned in the fight against human trafficking. And as you heard, her faith is in God. And we know with God, all things are possible. So I pray that you're all encouraged that every one of us can make a difference, no matter who we are, no matter where we are in the world, we can all make a difference in the fight against trafficking. So I want to thank Ate Cecile again. It is an honor. She is amazing. I remember the first time I met her, it was like meeting a celebrity. It was like meeting the queen. Like seriously, I was so in awe because I know about all that she has been doing for decades. So thank you so much. God bless you richly. And Lord willing, when I'm back in the Philippines, at some point we'll meet again for lunch. God bless you and thank you so much out there.
God bless your program too. God bless everybody. All the
Thank,
glory is spoken. Thank you.
Thank you.
yeah.
Amen. Thank you so much. You're welcome. And for those of you who tuned in, thank you so much for listening to Psychest Diaries. I trust the information has been useful. I believe every one of us must be educated, empowered, and inspired on these topics to better safeguard the children in our world. For those of you who are interested in being a part of my weekly Zoom meetings, if you'd like to get a copy of my book, Can You Keep a Secret? Listen to my podcast, or have your questions featured on future episodes of this show, please reach out to me. My website is changingcases.org, changingcases.org. Remember to share this with friends and family members. There may be victims and survivors in your world, you just don't know it. But for you to make the world a safer place, you need the knowledge, you need to be empowered. Education is liberation. God bless you all, and thank you so much for tuning in to Psychest Diaries.
Thank you, John.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you,
Welcome.
Tex.
Have a blessed day.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Bye.
Text is my new
Bye,
phone
Paul.
number.
Thank you.
Yes. All
Bye,
right.
Bye.
John.
All right. Bye.
Okay.
One love. Thank you very much. See you again, monitor at 12 o'clock. All right. Juanita? And I hear you. 12 o'clock for you, Juanita? 12 o'clock, right? It is today? 12 Juanita? 12 o'clock today? All right. Yeah. All right. See you guys later.
Okay.
All right.
See you. Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye bye.
Have a blessed day. See you at 12.
You too.
Okay. Oh, what a day, what a morning. This is, man, I am so moved by the work that these ladies are doing. This before you switch over to our page, our getting your praise on. I've been listening to this lady and the work that they're doing, and I mean, imagine 1 year old being sold into a sex slave, the sex trade.
Yeah,
I mean,
I can,
that is
it's kind of
terrible.
like that.
That's
Yeah.
terrible. That's very very terrible. I can't imagine my daughter being kidnapped, and sold into a sex trade at 1 year old. This
Oh,
is crazy. All the very reason for us to pay attention to our children and the people that we associate with, because, and she's saying, it's people that you know in your family, people
yeah.
you know in your neighborhood that sell your children. The businessmen, the church office, the church people, the police officers, they are all involved in this trade. You know what I mean? So
That's something I can. I'm hearing it, and probably because I I'm not too sure of that. I can put it together to
mm,
see that you could be going to a church and there's people that is inside the church.
yeah. But the devil occupy every space. He comes in to steal and to destroy, and that's exactly what's happening. They fitting themselves into the place where they know they're vulnerable people, and they're taking advantage of the
But
vulnerability of those people, and it's sad. You doesn't know who to trust when it comes to your children. You know.
it just put more fear in me that to know that I have to watch everybody know.
'Cause, it's coming to a trust issue. I mean, who can we trust? Who can we seriously say, well, my brother or my uncle, my pastor or the priest, my lawyer, the businessman in the community, can I afford to send my daughter to this corner store to do a transaction for me and not being um, um, captured by the same businessman who lure in, you know? Um, and there are women involved in the thing as well. Yeah, women pimp.
After they've been so bullied and so restricted that they don't have a choice
Mm. It's
because
sad. It's
if
sad.
that happened to you,
Mm.
wouldn't you now say I could never let it happen to somebody else?
And that's not the mindset. You see, there's money to be made. I mean, come on, one child could be sold several times for $10,000 easy, $100,000, $200,000 easy. You know,
Mm.
so the money is a deciding factor, not what I've been through. What I've been through now is time to make some money, and they see the opportunity to make money. You know, um, it's very sad. It's very sad, but we cannot afford to give up on that fight. We have to continue to fight against all form of victimization of our women and our children and our young, I mean, basically our young boys. Before you have to worry about your girl, but you have to worry about your boy child. You know what I mean? It's not just your girls anymore. Young
We're taking
boys. Oh yeah, boys are being kidnapped for sexual favors as well. There is some communities in the Middle East and Africa, and even in the Caribbean. Young boys are traded, captured and sold in the sex trade. So you no longer have to watch your girls, but just watch your children in general.
one.
And that's where it become even more heartbreaking. That men want to have sex with little boys, and little girls. I mean, talking about 22-year-old girls and 30-year-old women, and they want to have sex. They want to have children. Some people making requests for children of pubic hairs. That's sickening. That's sickening. So I hope that governments of the world will take notice and put some laws in place, put some serious effort into um, combating sex trade and human trafficking. Put some resources into that, because at the end of the day, their daughters, their son, their nephew, their nieces might be one traded, trafficked. So governments and other religious organizations have to pay very close attention and vet everybody that comes into your church. I'm inside, but that's what it comes down to. You know, don't
You
give
see,
them, don't
what
give them.
was saying. I think it was a couple of years ago. There was asking for people that's coming in the church
Mm,
to teach Bible study and thing.
mm.
Every worker
Have to
and for people that the police were
put
the record,
record. Yes, yes.
and everybody was upset about that. Why should we get one? Why should well no, this is the reason why that we should get one.
Yeah,
So we
and
don't know who they are.
we don't know who they are. You know, and that is sad. That is sad reality text. When you don't know who people are, it becomes difficult to vet them. You know, but the law have to be really strict and who comes into your church and they have to get a police record because people if you don't get a police record for them, you could your daughter or your son could be a victim of sexual molestation from within the church because the people come out in the world and come in, they're looking for vulnerable people, they're looking for young children. And where you'll find most young children either in the school and they're not teaching in the school. And some of the teachers, look at recently, a teacher was caught on Zoom masturbating. Thought his camera was off. You see? That is
Oh no!
oh yeah, he was on the news. You understand what I'm saying? So we our children, I mean 8.5 hours of school, we are exposing our children to ungodly, unfriendly people, demonic possessed people who have
I I was so naive to so many things. I was just a person that
mm,
trusts, and I just trust. I trust with no boundaries, no
mm,
border.
yeah,
And now it's like the more that I'm here, is the more that my mind is opening out. I hear people say things already, and I often say, "Well, let's give the person the benefit of the doubt until you know people." How naive is that? Now I'm coming to know everything, and you're watching everybody now. Is that person a criminal? Is that person? It,
I
it,
laugh because but
it's like that.
when our church, I think there's a time the church asked for people who want to teach for a criminal record, they want to get um, a record to ensure that this person are clean. Now I was on the board of directors of a preschool, all right, and when they submitted my name, right, my name John Kelly came up as someone who had a prior record. So what they wanted to do is to get me to go down to the police station to verify with my fingerprint, that the person carrying my name, what have they done in the past is not the same person, so they match the fingerprints, you know. So I went down, I got my fingerprint done, and I was cleared. But there's somebody with my name, address, doing the same thing, had a criminal record.
Oh
So
my
so
god!
people will do you use your name and your address, but they can't use your fingerprint. You know what I'm saying? So
Can I check mine to see
yeah, it's good.
my
It's always good to get a criminal record. Get your criminal record checked ever so often because at the end of the day, people could use your name, but they can't use your fingerprint. You
I'm
know,
gonna go men's check.
you know, because so before people come to your church and want to teach your children, want to be with your children, look what happened in our church, and I'm not free to say it, I'm apologizing for it. A couple years ago, our church, I wrote a post one time, not having no clue, my friend, no clue of the crime the brother had committed. Okay, I had no clue. The spirit in me, I sat down the night and I just wrote about probably 2 paragraphs on godly men and women in church and stuff like that. And people sometimes say, John, you always criticize the church. Well, based on my spiritual observation, I see things, and sometimes my wife, I say, look, I gotta write this, and just get this from the Lord, and just write it.
Know that.
And most of the time I drive in and I pull over and say, look, something just dropped in my speed and I wrote it, write it down.
No.
So I post it up, and then somebody called me, Brother John, you heard about this? I said, well, about what? You didn't hear about? I said, no. So, you know who I am. Another brother called me and said, man, you got to be a prophet. I said, no, I'm not a prophet. I just happened to get a spiritual thing from God and I just write it up. He said, well, look what happened. So when I went to church this Sunday, the pastor came up and he said, many of you may have heard about brother so and so, and if you don't know, don't tell, and if you don't know, don't ask. I'm thinking like, really now? You know, it is in the news. His name is all over the news. Get charged for 4 counts of sexual molestation of a minor. All
Mm.
right, I think 2 stick and two end up falling. You understand? And he been in the church around young people. He was responsible, I think, at one point for the daycare. You understand? And then a brother told me something about him. I said, "Are you kidding me? So why you don't come forward and talk about this stuff? You know, there's other situation, other people within the church talk about him, that thing that he said to their son and then everything. So all of this stuff, the people know about it, and they knew about it before it become public knowledge. They knew about it, you know, and people still trying to defend him within the church.
So wrong.
Yeah, within the church,
Somebody have a
you know,
problem, and
and
the kids here have to expose them. I don't care who, what. I exposing them. I don't care.
admit I don't care either. You know, see, and that's my point. And people might think, "Well, Brother John is a kind of radical kind of fella." I'm not radical. I'm just not gonna. And you know what made me get upset? My daughter used to be in the same house, go to the house, because there was another little girl there that they also used to dance with. They do a dance thing, right? And I'm thinking like, are you kidding me?
A chance.
You know what I'm saying?
What
I
I
got,
want to hear about you
I got,
on the movie. They have a movie.
yeah, Samuel L. Jackson.
Taken.
Yeah. Now I got really furious because my daughter been going to this house where he lives with the people. I'm thinking like, really now, you know? So a lot of people say, "Oh, it's not true. It's not true." Let me tell you something. He the police just the police wouldn't in Toronto in those things. Police would just arrest you because they want to. They would have carried out the investigation and then they'll drop the charge on you. Okay? So that for me was a problem. It was a big, big problem. And people think I was kind of a thing. A lot of people, you know, kind of shunned me, but I didn't care. I don't live with them. You know, I'm not responsible. Well, no, I'm accountable to God for my behavior.
Yeah.
Understand? And
Yeah.
whatever ever I see it from a point of a spiritual point of view. I examine myself, but yes, when I see wrong, I call it out.
Amen.
I'm not gonna sit down and pretend it didn't happen. I'm not gonna. That's one of those posts you'll never find me compromising the truth for sin to continue. I would never do it. You understand? So my position was expose it because we have children that being victimized all the time.
Innocent children.
Innocent children. And how could you have people claiming to be men and women of God sexually exploiting young children who cannot defend themselves? That's cowardice, and this is malice, and this is unrighteousness to its max. And I'm not gonna sit around and pretend that this thing is not happening. But if you have in the church, I'm gonna talk about it. And hence the reason why my daughter would never see nobody in the church by herself. Yeah, between me and her mom or somebody who I trust, yes, and have confidence in that person, it have chances best interest, have the best interest. Nobody ain't gonna see my daughter by themselves. Not even in school. Even in school, I tell Janice, if you try to stay over for 1 minute or whatever, let it be with between 2 or 3 persons, not just one person. I don't care how private you want to make it be. Don't feel bad. Let the person talk to you in company of somebody. I'll let I be there. Mm-hmm. No. Nobody see my daughter by themselves. No teacher, no principal after school. No, it ain't happening. It's not gonna happen.
Now you got me all wired up.
Well, folks, again, good morning. This is Gem FM. I'm your host, the Sheriff. Yours truly, John Callis, and with me is Tex Manoy, my co-host. 8:30 right now, right about now, and this was the Changing Cases show, the sexual human trafficking.